I had never intended for things to unfold this way. In fact, I had made assurances on the contrary. In the beginning, she loathed me. I knew the signs well. Contempt was an old companion, worn and familiar. I'd long since stopped being wounded by it. I anticipated it, relied on it even. At first, her irritation had been mildly entertaining, a flicker of spark in an otherwise predictable exchange. Then it became habit, expected, and in time, something I waited for, missed when absent, something I needed more than I cared to admit. She was untrained, impatient, and entirely too emotive for her own good. I noticed such things. Against my better judgment, I noticed her. The way she pressed for answers even when none were offered. The way her eyes lingered on my hands when I wasn't speaking. The way she clenched her jaw when forced to accept silence. I had made a study of her despite myself, and no matter how carefully I tried to maintain the boundaries between us, something shifted. Inevitably, the dynamic evolved. I heard her showering behind the closed door of the adjoining washroom, a low, steady rhythm I'd grown used to. I lay still, the sheets tangled around my waist, one arm folded behind my head, the other resting uselessly on the empty pillow beside me. I told myself I was not waiting for her to return, and yet, there I lay. I could picture her, head tilted back beneath the spray, steam curling around her bare body, water running down in rivulets over her skin, over her cursed mark. She always took her time in the shower afterward, always hummed the same haunting melody. The water rinsed away not just sweat and passion, but whatever walls remained between us. I believed I understood her now, that she had seen me, and perhaps in some foolish, fragile way, she had. I closed my eyes briefly, and without permission, memory overtook me. One morning she failed to appear in my office. Tardiness was expected, but this was different. It had unsettled me more than it should have. I told myself it was about discipline, structure, education. Nothing more. Certainly not concern. My feet moved of their own accord in search of her, carrying me through the corridors with quiet purpose. I knew where she'd be before I saw her, and there she was, slumped over a table in the library, fast asleep, her cheek pressed against an old, thick book. A book I'd rather she not have discovered. The Battle of Hogwarts. Of course. I rapped my knuckles on the table sharply. She startled, vulnerable. Sat up, closed the book quickly. The way her eyes flicked up to me. Half guilt, half defiance. Learn anything valuable? I asked, my tone biting, as always. But it wasn't sarcasm, not entirely. I wondered what she'd uncovered about me. The story carved into records and memories both some truths, some exaggerations, some lies. My place in the last war. A spy. A double agent. One who'd stood at the right hand of the darkest wizard in a century. I was a man who had watched atrocities unfold and stood complacent in their execution, and for the part I played, I had nearly been murdered for it. I turned away, told her to compose herself. My voice carried no disdain. Something quieter. Unease, perhaps. A shift I hadn't meant to show. Small and vulnerable. After that morning, something in her changed. She no longer met me with jabs and sneers. There was a new stillness in her gaze. Something that lived somewhere between recognition and curiosity. Was it admiration? Respect? Could it be attraction? The first time she appeared at my door in the middle of the night, I told myself it was temporary, that I would give her the sleeping potions and send her away, that she would take the hint. She never did. Nor did I ever stop answering the door. Even now, I could recall the faint knock as if it had just echoed off the stone. Her knock. I never spoke much. Words had always failed me in their softness. But she began to understand me in the quiet. She learned what others never had. My silence did not mean indifference. My presence was my permission. In time, she stopped taking the potions I gave her and began sleeping in my bed. I didn't question it. It seemed to be the only place where she could sleep without interruption, where her night terrors couldn't reach her. I allowed it. It became routine, unspoken, familiar. She always began at the edge, curled tightly as if trying to take up as little space as possible. Then gradually, she would shift, closer, warmer, until she was pressed against me. And by morning we were always tangled together, limbs drawn close as if by instinct. It wasn't affection. Not exactly. At least I told myself that. But the truth is harder. I had gone so long without softness. I no longer recognized it when it arrived. Then came the night she asked me to kiss her. Even now, the memory pulled a tension through my chest. "Severus," she had whispered. I had hummed, barely a sound, a quiet confirmation that I was listening. "May I kiss you?" Her voice had wavered, but only slightly. I had sensed her hesitation. This was something that had crossed her mind more than once. It had crossed my own more than once. I hadn't expected the jolt that followed her words, a sudden electric tension that ran the length of my spine. I waited. I wondered if I should have said no. I did not. And then her lips touched the corner of my mouth. Barely more than breath. I should have stopped it. Should have remembered who I was. Instead, I hid, like a coward, behind silence. She pulled back and looked at me, waiting, hopeful and unsure. "Did you find that satisfactory?" I finally asked, my voice instinctively devoid of emotion. She shook her head. "Then try again." As if drawn by command, she leaned in again and placed her lips squarely this time upon mine. She didn't open her mouth, but her lips massaged mine gently. She pulled back again, meeting my gaze as she did so. Her touch awakened something I thought had long since withered. The warmth of her hands against my skin, the brush of her breath at my throat, the way she held me as if I were something worth holding. None of it aligned with the image I carried of myself. I, who had been marked by darkness, by deception, by a life spent in shadows. I, who had no right to softness, and yet I wanted more. Merlin, help me, I wanted more. Again. For a third time, she leaned into me, my arm tightened around her shoulder, pulling her closer. My other hand reached to the back of her neck, holding her in place. It was either instinct or need, but her lips parted and my own followed suit, allowing my tongue to meet hers. Tasting, embracing, dancing, matching each other's hunger. And thus our relationship evolved, from contempt to familiar, and finally to lovers.